Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we learn to make a good mystery great. And today we're going to talk about research guidelines. Guidelines to do research so you don't get trapped with too much, and when to do research when you're writing. Okay, first, I just want to invite you, if you like this series and you're getting something out of this series, buy me a cup of coffee. There's a link in the description below, and help support this video series. Okay, so research for your mystery novel. Doing thorough research is important when you're writing the story. And although research can take many forms, great writers make sure to know about the topic they're writing about, and it's just so important. They interview people, they go on site, and they read and read and read and take notes. And the reason you want to do good research is because readers want to believe, they must believe, that what is happening in your story is true. That's how they get immersed in your story. So to make the details true, you need the information to write those realistic details. Readers enjoy your book when they can thoroughly immerse themselves in this story, and research is how you make that story world real for your readers. First, I want to state that there are two phases of research. So, the first is broad background research that you do before you start writing. You just want to get a general sense of where you are and details that you may need in your story, and that is go anywhere, find anything. I just want to collect information so that you have enough to put in the right details at the right time in your story. And a lot of the research that you do is not going to show up in your story, but it helps you understand the background of the story. So think of maybe 20% of all the research that you do actually shows up in your story. But the reason you know which 20% to put in your story is because you really have a solid foundation of the big picture. Okay, so that's the first phase, the big, broad background. The second phase is, as much research as you do, you're writing a scene and all of a sudden you discover that you don't know something. So I call this scene-specific research. It's the stuff that you need to know to make that particular scene realistic. And there's two ways that you can do that. You can stop your writing, which I never suggest, and do the research right then and there, or you can wait till you finish that writing session and then go back and do the research for the details. And then some authors put a marker in their manuscript, like I've mentioned before. I used X's. I just put 4 X's, and then I can search through and find all the places where I need to fix something. And for that research detail that's missing, that means you need to go find the information about that specific detail. So basically, two areas of research. One is the big bad background, and the other is the scene-specific detail that's missing for your story. It's really important to do the research before you write your story. You really want that broad background knowledge, because as I mentioned before, until you're actually writing, you don't know which of the details that you found are the ones that you're actually going to use in this story. But getting that big comprehensive overview really helps you write the story. Okay. So the aim of that first background research is to enrich the story for your readers. And you are in discovery mode. When you find details, you store them away. And for beginning writers, once again, you want to know that 80% of the research that you do doesn't show up in your story. That doesn't mean you don't do it. It just means that it won't show up in your story. All right? And then, of course, the reverse is true, is that when you want a detail, you'll have material to enliven your characters and the setting and enrich your scenes. So one of the best ways to do research is feet on the ground. Go where your story takes place. And that includes the town or city or the countryside, but it also includes being in someone's residence, like an apartment or a house. Or where does your detective live? You want a general idea of the floor plan of where they live, whether it's an apartment or a house in the suburbs or a cabin in the woods, wherever your main character lives. You really want a good solid idea of their house and how it's furnished and what it looks like. It doesn't take much to explore your story's location. You just need an open mind to find great settings for your story. You want a camera when you're out with feet on the ground, because your camera will capture those details. If you out and about doing your research and then you actually begin writing your story a couple of months later or even longer, all those images that you took with your camera help bring those details to mind. So a camera is a really important tool for your feet on the ground activity, and most mobile devices these days, like your mobile phone, have plenty of excellent camera work, so you'll get good images for your research. Another thing that you want is, this is really old school, but it is a notebook. Some way to capture your personal impressions of where you are. Whoa, this alley is really dark. It just feels creepy. You want to get your personal impressions in line with, say, a photo that you took, something like that. And also, when you come across a location, you want your notebook to jot down any scene ideas that the location brings to your mind. And the other thing that is so beneficial about going on location is you're going to discover details that no amount of online research is going to give you. You are going to know what your characters know and don't know because you're there. You're on the scene, as it were. And you can route shortcuts that can offer surprises for your action. And you're going to have interior details of buildings and rooms and halls and back kitchens of places, especially if you're writing regional stories. Architecture actually varies from according to geographical location. And the other thing about feet on the ground is meeting the people. And my experience is that people are very supportive of authors researching stories, and they'll tell you things you never would have discovered on your own. oh, there's this great place where this happens, or do you know about the boys club over on the blah blah blah? I didn't. They just volunteer information for you, and you're going to get new resources. And also, people introduce you to specialists, so don't dismiss people. So just a little bit more about the people, real people that you can use for your research background. As you meet people and tell them why you're visiting, you'll be surprised at how many people really want to help you. It's just amazing. They refer you to other people. They refer you to other places. They know things, and they know people that you just wouldn't know, and they give you details that you can use in your story, and they're details that you never would have considered if you hadn't actually spoken to this person, this individual. People actually do research for you. They'll offer magazine articles, or they'll tell you about a website that addresses the specifics of your story. You're going to taste authentic food, different from the food in your home. You're just going to find a lot of surprises from being there and talking to people. So don't overlook talking to people. They're a great source of information on your research for your story. So, of course, there are online resources, and these are a great way to get a broad-based background for your story. And, of course, there's Google. And sometimes you need more than what Google gives you. And you can do a specific search, online search at Google Scholar, and that is going to come up with scholarly articles that will give you some major details and research, book excerpts, and abstracts of research. And none of those things display in your regular, quote, Google search. And then if you can't get your feet on the ground for physical reasons or financial reasons or whatever, Google Earth displays every detail in cities and towns, and you can go and you can actually go around a town on Google Earth and follow the streets. I found that I was doing this about a month ago. I was following all the roads that led up into the hills where my story takes place. And then another online resource that you may not have thought about is real estate listing websites. If you need a mansion for a rich villain or a humble condo for a character, you can search websites like Redfin and look at residences that are on the market, and they have both exterior and interior images of these places, so you really get a solid idea of what that place is like. And if you find a place that fits a character, I recommend that you save those images, because these places are all for sale and they may disappear in another month. So if you find the right place, just be sure to keep those images so you have the details when you're writing your story. And then, of course, there's the very old-fashioned way, which is books and print materials. And your library has resources available. And also, as you continue your career as an author, you're going to build up your own personal reference library of books that pertain to your writing, whether they're about weapons or poison or a particular culture. It just depends on where and when your story takes place, which books end up in your personal library. So there's many other print materials that you can use. Some things as simple as travel brochures or firearm manuals, used bookstores, um, government websites. Government websites have a lot of detailed information. Maps, documentaries, medical journals, guidebooks, news broadcasts, trade magazines, public trial information, almanacs, memoirs, regional histories, lots of books that cover the subjects that you're writing about in your story. Okay, and then just a little follow-up on the research that you do when you're writing, getting those specific details after you've done your broad research. As I said, I call them the scene-specific research details, and you can use the same resources that you use for your broad background, but now you're going to be very targeted in your search. And you may find that the direct connection with that person, you can get back in touch with them and say, hey, remember when I asked you about X? Now I'm wondering how this works. And once again, people are, for the most part, very, very helpful. And if they don't want to be helpful, they'll let you know right away. So just let it go and find somebody else. Okay. All right, another thing is, how do you know when to stop research? I mean, you could do this for years, right? And you don't want to do this, you want to write your story. So research can lead you down rabbit holes, so it's okay to go down an occasional rabbit hole, but don't keep doing that. This is especially true, I think, for beginning writers, when you feel like you don't know enough and you can get trapped in an endless search for more information. So my guideline for you is gather the basic information, know where you're going, and then start writing. Start writing your story, because remember, you always have that second research phase. When you get to a scene and you don't know something, you can fill in that particular detail. And I find in series writing, I may have the general background information for the series, but each story in the series requires specific research about a specific industry or something. And so each book has specific research that I need to do, even though I've done the general background research. Okay, and just remember, because you won't use 80% of your research, the best approach is to begin writing your story. Okay, one last word about research for today, and that is, let the story be the guide. That's another guideline for when to know when to start researching. When you feel that you're ready to write your story, because no matter how much research you do, as you're writing, you're going to discover details you don't know, so don't worry about it. Rather than trying to know everything before you start, do your general background research and then let the story guide you for the rest of the research that you need. So the writing of the story is the important part. All right. As you write, you're going to discover needs you hadn't imagined. You never would have thought of them when you were doing the general research. So just let those things come up as they happen. So instead of attempting to get everything that you need, collect the general background and then start writing. The story is going to give you the details that you need that you don't know yet. Okay, I hope that helps. Research is a big part of getting that material that makes your story immersive and feels rich in detail for your reader. But you just don't want to get stuck there. The story comes first, the research comes second in priority. And then one note about, okay, I've done doing my research. Where do I put all this stuff? I use Plotter. I love Plotter. Aside from the plot and the storyline and all of that in Plotter, you have places to store the place files. You have places a note section, which is just totally open to any kind of note you want to make about your research. And I store links to a website, and then have my own notes about how that research applies to a story. But as I'm writing, if I need to go back to that website, I know exactly where to go. So I don't have to go, where was that website, and start all over again with my search. So Plotter is a great tool for storing your research, and there's a link to Plotter in the description below if you'd like to find out more about it. Okay, that's it for today. A lot of stuff about research, and research is fun. I enjoy doing research, but just remember, your story comes first. All right, thank you. Keep writing, and I'll see you next time.